Hello once again, senior high school students. Here is your lesson number 3 in Philippine Politics and Governance. Before anything else, let me ask you, are you familiar with those in pictures? Who are they? Are they related to our topic? You know, according to one of our colleagues, that anyone with great power comes great responsibility. Really? Let's find out. Listen carefully. Our lesson is about the nature, dimensions, or types and consequences of power. And for our objectives and guide questions, at the end of the lesson, you will be able to define and identify the nature, types, and consequences of power, explain the nature, dimensions, types, and consequences of power, elaborate how power is exercised in different situations. What is power? What are the nature, dimensions, types, and consequences of power, and how power is being used in different situations? Alright, there we go. When we hear the word power, there are words that are commonly associated with it, like authority, command, control, voice, dominance, and influence. Okay, let's have the nature of power first. Power can be defined in many ways. According to scholar Kenneth Boulding, power is the ability to change the future. It is the ability to do something or act in a particular way, especially as a faculty or quality. The power of speech. The capacity or ability to direct or influence the behavior of others or the course of events. And in its broadest sense, it is the ability to achieve desired outcome and is sometimes seen as the power to do something. The probability that one actor within a social relationship will be in position to carry out his will despite resistance. Some scholars identified three distinctions of power: power over, power to, and power with. When we say power over, it is the ability to dominate another person or group, commonly comes from force or threat. When we say power to, it is the ability to do something on one's own, from intellect, resources, knowledge, and stamina. And when we say power with, it is the ability to work with others to get something done by the others, or the so-called power of consensus. And what are the bases of power? One is the so-called legitimate power. Legitimate power, also known as titular or formal power, a power that comes from having a title. It generally comes from a place in a hierarchy or from one's organizational role or position. This type of power tells nothing about whether a person is a good or poor leader. It only says that he or she is of a former elevated rank in the organization. Example: Steve Jobs has enjoyed legitimate power as the CEO of Apple. He could set deadlines, and employees comply even if they think the deadlines were overly ambitious. 2. The so-called reward power. Reward power based on employees' perceptions that a person or leader has the ability to offer them benefits based on meeting the person's or leader's directives. In its simplest form, it's like when your parents tell you to clean up the house and they will bring you an ice cream. Reward power tends to accompany legitimate power and is highest when the reward is scarce. Anyone can wield reward power, however, in the form of public praise or giving someone something in exchange for their compliance. When Steve Jobs ran Apple, he had reward power in the form of raises and promotions. And the third is the so-called coercive power. When we talk about coercive power, it is the ability to take something away or punish someone for non-compliance. Coercive power often works through fear, and it forces people to do something that ordinarily they would not choose to do. Like, for example, in the workplace, coercive power is based on the perception that the superior has the ability to punish them if they fail to conform to his or her demands. Almost all definitions, coercive power entails at least some fear on the part of the employee. So sad. For that reason, coercive power now is categorized as a harsh form of power. And the fourth one is the expert power. When we say expert power, it is the perception that a certain person has an elevated level of knowledge or a specific skill set that others do not have. Expert power is a non-coercive leadership power. People follow an expert or follow the advice of an expert because they are respected for their capabilities. Like Steve Jobs has expert power from his ability to know what customers want, even before they can articulate it. Others who have expert power in an organization include, for example, long-time employees, such as a steel worker who knows the temperature combinations and length of time to get the best yields. Technology companies are often characterized by experts also, rather than legitimate power. Many of these firms utilize a flat or metric structure in which clear lines of legitimate power become blurred as everyone communicates with everyone else, regardless of position. Next to the last, the so-called informational power. This power is similar to expert power but differs in its source. Experts tend to have a vast amount of knowledge or skill, whereas information power is distinguished by access to specific information. For example, knowing price information gives someone the information power during negotiations or any conversations. Information power comes first from having insight or information that others don't have access to. When you've read something that other people haven't read, when you're more in touch with what's happening in your industry, and that's you have the information power. And the last but not the least, the so-called referent power. It stems from the personal characteristics of the person, such as the degree to which we like, respect, and want to be like them. Referent power is often called charisma, the ability to attract others, win their admiration, and hold them spellbound. Another example again, Steve Jobs' influence, as described in the opening case, is an example of this charisma. Leaders with referent power are deeply admired and respected because of who they are or who they have proven to be. They often have a strong ability to connect with other people in a way that seems effortless. People follow them or want to work for people with referent power because most of the time they identify with them. It is as much about social reputation as it is about skills and talents. We often see this referent power at play with celebrity endorsements most of the time. Example, when a celebrity who is highly admired endorses something, those people who admire the celebrity want to follow suit. Okay, now let's move on to the three types of power. There is an economic power, there's also social power, and the so-called political power. When we say economic power, the basis of all power, including political power also. It is the ability to affect the lives of others through withholding trade or the raising of prices on goods. And about social power, it is the degree of influence that an individual or organization has among their peers and within their society as a whole. And on political power is an authority held by a group within a society that allows for the administration of public resources and implement policies for society. You may wonder, how do power exist? So let's find out the sources. First is when you have the authority. It is established to make decisions and order the actions of others. The people give to the ruler the authority to rule, and they obey willingly without the threat of force. Power can also be obtained through the use of force. The actual or the so-called physical force or la threatened, the latent force, use of coercion to impose one's will on others. When leaders imprison or even execute political dissidents, thus apply force. And power can be identified through influence also. It refers to exercise of power through the process of persuasion. It is the ability to affect the decisions and actions of others. Alright, aside from the distinctions, power also has dimensions like issue method, setting agenda, and manipulating the view of others. In 1974, Stephen Luke put forward his radical view or dimensions of power. One is the issue method. This is based upon the word of Dahl, who said that person who wins an argument or an issue has the power. Another one is by setting the agenda. Luke said you have the power because you set the agenda. You decide what you will include about, therefore dictating the situation. And power can be seen also in manipulating the view of others. Describe how power can covert manipulate others to do something they might not actually want to do by changing what they want. And behind those circumstances of having these powers, take note, there are consequences. One is the positive consequence. A positive with having so much power could be the fact that people look up to you and have respect for you. Having a lot of power in an organizational setting would be that your voice is always heard. People look to you in successful situations. And of course, the negative consequences. Having a lot of power can be negative when you are gaining power at the expense of someone else, and if you are in the lower rank or high standard, your voice would never be heard. And a big negative would be all the responsibility that comes with power. If something goes wrong, the one with the most power could sometimes find themselves in trouble. Okay, class, before we end our lesson, we have here a quote from Master Cheng Yen. Keep in mind, or come to think of it, how powerful this quote is. According to him, the three no's in this world, there is no one I would not love, no one I would not trust, and no one I would not forgive. It's somewhat like on the Bible verse, love your enemies. Thank you. See you in the next lesson. Stay safe always.